for a man celebrating, or should have been celebrating, his 1000th day as Prime Minister, it wasn't a very enjoyable afternoon, being called a liar, being called dishonest by the other side, and then having his former chief whip say he'd lost confidence in him. Not a very fun afternoon for the PM.
Yeah, it was not a fun afternoon for Boris Johnson, having to apologise again and again and again and again. I mean, essentially every single answer for an hour and a half, Nigel, in the Commons chamber this afternoon, with the Prime Minister saying that he was sorry, offering an awful lot of contrition. Now, it must be said, first of all, most Conservative MPs are on side with that. They welcomed the Prime Minister's apology. They also welcomed the idea that Boris Johnson has repeatedly put forward over the last week, that it is now time to move on and to focus on the other big issues he would suggest the country needs to tackle, whether that is the cost of living crisis and indeed rising energy bills, or what is happening in Ukraine. But that is not to say, as you say, there is opposition, first of all from the opposition benches. Keir Starmer's speech, I think, really hit home with a lot of people about the personal sacrifices that many have had to make over the last 2 and a bit years, people not able to see dying relatives in hospitals. This is not akin to a speeding fine or a parking ticket, something that Brandon Lewis, the Northern Ireland Secretary, suggested earlier on today. Something that must be said, the Prime Minister himself accepted this was far more serious, though I do actually take your point about how these could rack up and get life much more difficult for the Prime Minister. But most notably, and probably the more dramatic moment today, was, you say, was Mark Harper, the MP for the Forest of Dean, former Chief Whip under David Cameron, who essentially has now handed in his letter to the 1922 committee calling for a vote of confidence in the Prime Minister. It's the first time he's gone public on that. So where are we then in all of this, Nigel? Well, I think first of all, the next moment is going to be on Thursday. The Labour Party did win today a vote in the Commons that might see Boris Johnson referred to the Privileges Committee about whether he lied to Parliament effectively, whether he misled the House. I suspect the Conservatives will row into line and the Prime Minister will survive that vote. But there are two big things on the horizon. First of all is the local elections in a couple of weeks' time. If the polls are correct, the Conservatives are expected to do pretty badly across the country, even when they're not defending that many seats. And second of all, as you've rightly pointed out, we could see the Prime Minister back here again, and maybe again, and maybe again. And I think if we get to the third or fourth time, many of those Conservative MPs will start to question whether, as Mark Harper put it today, the Prime Minister's actions can longer be defended.